During the war, the Bridgewater collection was sent for safety to the Scottish borders, and after the war went further north to Edinburgh.
That yellow is quite amazing. This is the most beautiful picture, and there's a room full of breathtaking poussins, and these all arrived from the Bridgewater collection in 1945, along with the Titians and the Raphaels and a Rembrandt. Just imagine.
The secretary of the then Earl of Ellesmere rather timidly approached the director here and said, "Would you terribly mind looking after these pictures for a while?" And unsurprisingly, the answer was yes.
The current Duke of Sutherland wants the galleries to buy 2 of the Titians, the incentive being that they can then keep the rest of the collection on long-term loan. They've already raised £50 million for one and are fundraising for the second.
Does anyone come and say, well, why are you spending that money on this?
Oh yes, of course they do, because the sums of money are large. Though it has to be said, in the light of some of the recent banking revelations, they don't seem quite as large as they once seemed. But that's obviously made it more difficult, made the gradient steeper for us to climb. But when art is truly great, and these paintings are great by any definition, whatever the climate, you just have to succeed for the public good and for public access.
The collection helps make Edinburgh the European capital and cultural centre that it is, as does the Edinburgh Festival, though keeping that going is a challenge in times like these. It's impossible to imagine Edinburgh without the festival.
There was a moment when you were having a lot of problems, weren't you, in raising the money?
Let's not forget that this festival started in 1947. There was petrol rationing, there was food rationing. I don't think we remember enough of how difficult it was to start and how important this festival was, not because it boosted tourism, but because it provided a desperate need in people's lives. There was an absolute necessity for people to have optimism in their lives at a time when their whole lives had been destroyed by the Second World War. So this festival was very deliberately placing itself at the core of what a lot of people felt Europe needed to become, a way in which if we play together, if we sing together, if we learn about each other's cultures, we are less likely, much less likely, to kill each other. In the difficult times ahead of us, we should not just think about the doom and gloom, we should also think about the extraordinary institutions, the extraordinary capacity of this country to pull itself out of a mire, of a terrible situation, and create a future for itself.
Can culture play that role today, pulling the nation together and transforming whole cities? The expansion of cultural institutions has been just phenomenal.
When the Arts Council was founded, there were about 12, what today we call revenue clients, who got regular money. And you know, if I asked you what those 12 were, you'd get them right. It's Covent Garden, it's Sadler's Wells, it's the Old Vic, now the National Theatre, it's the symphony orchestras. But we now have nearly 800 revenue clients, regularly funded organisations of the Arts Council, from about 12 to 800 in the space of 60 years. It has grown hugely. It's like the National Health Service. The more you provide, the more demand is stimulated, and there's never enough.
You do sometimes wonder whether there is enough to fill all these palaces. Some are even dismissed as a colossal waste of public money. Architect Will Alsop's Pink Elephant in West Bromwich, for instance. It was inventive and well-intentioned, but it was £15 million over budget and more than 2 years late. And there's still nothing in its exhibition space. There are optimistic private plans too, like for a new gallery in London's Hoxton Square, across from the White Cube. It's the brainchild of a New York stockbroker turned art dealer.
The idea was to demolish the building and do Zaha Hadid's first development in England. I recently got permission just in December, just around the time of the collapse of the world. I am trying to find a partner, in addition to my bank, which is now a fully government-owned subsidiary, that believes in this vision more as an act of public sculpture than as a strictly business proposition.
Here's another architect's dream, this time in Colchester. It spent years juddering towards reality. And now the recession has compounded that history of delays, so not the ideal time to be building, is it really? Things are obviously pretty desperate. They're trying to sell the floorboards now.
But a case where spending a great deal of money on culture does seem to have helped the whole community is Newcastle and Gateshead.
Every city should be its Jerusalem. It should have its library, it should have its gallery, it should have its theatre, it should have wonderful buildings and a sense of pride. If the economy's stupid, support the cultural and creative industries, and you're supporting the fastest wealth generation in Britain.
Arts developments are taking the place of industry in Britain today. Conversions like the Baltic Art Gallery, once a flour mill, do help urban regeneration. They attract visitors, increase property values and create employment. The jewel in the crown here has to be the Sage Gateshead, designed by Norman Foster. It's a music centre built with £115 million from the lottery, from Europe and the local council. But how do they keep it going in times like these?
We raised an endowment fund to ensure we weren't a white elephant, to ensure we had a really good and secure funding stream.
Endowment funds, of course, are a very good idea, but ironically, endowments have been hit by this recession because of the investments have lost their value, haven't they?
In good times, we've drawn down between 600,000 and 700,000 a year, of course, from that 12 million investment. Now it's considerably reduced.
The money for the fund came from Sage, a local software company, who certainly got their money's worth, and also from the now infamous Northern Rock, a major sponsor of the arts throughout the Northeast.
This idea that bankers have come to the arts recently is nonsense. Monte di Paschi di Siena in the 12th century, Europe's first bank, was also one of Europe's first great patrons, and of course the Medici, the great bankers of Florence. Money and art have always gone together. The Victorian philanthropists built Britain. All these great bankers, cotton owners, wool merchants, they wanted to be the Lorenzo di Magnifico. And they are.
And if you tell them that, it's irresistible, isn't it? They've got to give you the money, haven't they?
What we need is to give the confidence to the bankers that they should be proud of what they do. What people are terrified of is the champagne moment. They are nervous that their customers or clients or shareholders or the Daily Mail will say, you know, fat cats at the opera scandal when the local community are suffering. But it shouldn't be either or, because it's actually investing in the infrastructure which will make this country brilliant.
You can't underestimate the fact that there's been £250 million invested in this region. That has created a critical mass that has developed almost a need for cultural activity that we never saw before in this region. I think the lives of the communities of the North East have been absolutely transformed.
Just across the Tyne from the Sage is the Live Theatre.
10-week tour, 12-week
yeah,
tour.
Until the 6th of June. A nice big foot to drag around. Yeah.
It's a centre for new writing that's always fostered young talent.
It's like Alice in Wonderland.
You are caught in some kind of prison and you can't get out. And you guys behind, we're like the guards. So
It does work that could never be funded by box office alone.
And I'll teach it to you. 1, 2, 3.